Young Yzma.
Young Yzma. That's my new... I'm going to change my Instagram handle to Young Yzma.
I love it. Well, welcome back to the podcast, you guys. The Branded Podcast. I am Sierra Scott, and you are...
Hi, I'm Ashley.
And we are a Klein Creative. I do Chief Marketing Technology, and Ashley does...
I'm the head of client relations.
Today, we're going to be tackling a very, very important subject. One that I think a lot of people are interested in. Which would be...
Cause fatigue. Too many causes.
Cause fatigue. Too many causes. It's 2023, you guys. It's like the year of never-ending causes.
Yeah. There's just when you think you're in the clear, something else is in crisis and you need to take a stance on it, or do you? Our whole conversation here on this episode is about, like, should brands constantly be taking a stance? Like, should they be having an opinion on every single thing? Does it matter? Do the consumers need that? Do they want that? Are they going to trust you less if you don't have that? And to a certain degree, yeah, like we're both consumers at the end of the day. So, you know, we find a brand we love. We talk to each other about it. Like, oh yeah, like I didn't know that they give back to this or that. You know, it is important, but we do feel that sense of fatigue that we're talking about right now of like, where's all this stuff that, like, as Americans who pay taxes in this generation, like, why are millennials, like, not getting anything, though? So if you're a brand and you're constantly telling us what we should do or how we should be or saying that you're better than someone, that's also a turnoff, too, because we feel fatigued by the whole thing. We feel disenfranchised, for sure. So you don't need a brand that is worth billions telling you, oh, you need to recycle more. And it's like, no, I think BP, like, because did you see when BP had the whole, it's one of the funniest memes I've ever seen on the internet. It was like, BP's climate pledge, share your climate pledge with BP on Twitter. And someone just replied, I pledge not to dump 21 million gallons of oil into the ocean.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah,
it's just
I saw that.
That's a backfire. That's exactly why we're like, I mean, what do you want from us, BP? Like...
Right. And I mean, to expand on that, it's like you have all these companies who are like, oh, let's combat climate change and whatever, but they want you to supplement it. And they're like, oh, give us, 10% of your purchase, or like, not even, we'll take 10% of your purchase and put it into, but like, do you want to add on an additional 10% to your purchase to do this? And it's like, I'm sorry, are you not like $1 billion company already? Are you not just overruling the whole, like, you have the cap on the marketplace in your category and you're asking me to, on top of what I'm already giving you, which is inflated prices already, give you an additional amount to combat something that you created to begin with? Like, what is this nonsensory here? And I feel like we're in such an interesting age range because you've got people who are like younger generations who are all about causes and all about brands needing to support the cause and whatnot. And then you have our generation who is not against that in any way, shape, or form. Like, we want you to support a cause. We want you to be about something, I think, as a general, more or less. But at the same time, it's like, but the way that you're going about it is weird. It's just weird. And I don't know. I find it to be just so off-putting. It's like why does everything land back on the consumer? It's like companies just have zero culpability these days, and I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's a really important conversation to have about that gray area, because as a creative agency, clients will come to us and be like, "Well, we care, and like we're getting comments on our Facebook of like, why aren't you talking about this?" That's a big thing where you start to get bullied by your consumers too. Like, people will demand that of you. Like, well, what's your stance on this? This is terrible. You have females in your executive office. Well, you need to talk about like the thing that just got passed today. We need a real statement from you. And it's like, we don't have anything to do with that, but now we're getting pressured. And then we feel like we're the bad guy if we don't say anything. So it is this gray area of like, do you feel at the end of the day, you always have to have a stance on something. Like, you have to have values, like, as a person, so we want that reflected with the places that we patron, but what is the correct amount and how much, like, because you can't from what I was reading an article in Forbes about the harms of just being neutral, like, because like some poll of people was just like, yeah, I mean, I actually don't trust a company who has no stances. I want to know something about them. You need to humanize yourself. So if you have nothing, that's not okay. But if you have too much, you become BP or you become Starbucks asking for a tip at the drive-through window, which happened to me the other day, where I was like, I mean, God bless these workers, but me tipping you is subsidizing the fact that Starbucks is not paying you more as an employee. And that's not my problem. And if I tip
oh my God,
you,
tipping
I'm
culture is out of
allowing them to
control.
do it. It is. And it's how these corporations are getting away with not giving union benefits or healthcare to their workers, which Starbucks can't afford. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So now I'm put in a position where I now feel bad that I'm not giving him $2 extra when I wasn't expecting. I'm already giving you $6.95 for a medium-sized coffee. You know,
right? Which I totally agree with you on this. And I was watching a thing on YouTube, maybe like a couple weeks ago, where this ice cream shop in Seattle, I believe, the owner, she realized that whenever people were asking for tips, because, you know, you buy your ice cream and they had one of those, like a square or something where you just kind of put in your tip amount at the end. They turn the thing towards you and you just put it in. So they're right there for it. Yeah, it's like immediate and you're feeling judged and whatever. And she realized that people of color got less tips than their, you know, Caucasian counterparts when that was happening. And so she was like, but everybody comes here. They all do the same work. She was very much behind her employees. And so she said, why am I doing this? She's like, I'm just going to make the prices higher. I'm just going to put the tip into the prices. And whoever, you know, if you don't want to pay the price of the ice cream, then you can go to another ice cream shop. But you come here, you get the service that we provide you, and you can just pay the price. And so she did it, and it just made everything better for everyone involved. Like, people don't feel that pressure having to figure out how to do the tip situation. People feel like when they're working there that they're getting the equal pay that everybody else gets for doing the same job. So it's like, I think that, yeah, maybe you potentially alienate some clients who may or not be able to afford the price of your product, your service, your good. But at the same time, it's like, you make just such a better working environment. And for the people who can afford it, it's a way more pleasant experience than having to sit there and be confronted at the end of your checkout with, how much are you going to pay this person who just helped you? Like, are you not going to pay them and make it weird? Are you going to overpay them because you feel like put on the spot? Or are you just going to give like, you know, a medium amount to just so that you can walk away feeling not terrible? But it's just take the onus, companies. Like, it's your responsibility to pay the people a living wage so that they can continue to contribute to society. At the end of the day, that's what you want. You want a society that to have an economy thrive, they need to be able to participate in the economy. So if you take away their wages or make them dependent on only tips and gig culture, it's like, eventually it's going to collapse. It may not be within your lifetime, but eventually this sort of system will collapse because the bottom level will have no money. That's just how it will be.
That's what blows my mind too, with what we started talking about in the beginning. It ties in together of like, why are they purposely keeping the millennial society or millennial generation down? We are the ones who like will inherit all of this. So if we have no financial wealth and we have no like generational wealth that we're building and it's all gone, what do you think happens to all of the systems that America has? They all collapse. So why are you purposely keeping us down to keep yourselves comfortable when, like, do you just not care? Because like student loans, there's so many statistics out there about the fact that we aren't buying homes and we aren't doing this and that. We don't have like the same kind of savings, or we're not going to have retirement. Social Security is going to run out in our lifetime. Like, then what? Like, so if you're keeping us from getting that kind of wealth, then you just don't care to see everything break. You're gonna be like, okay, well, we'll be gone. What's it matter? So like, that's not a way to run a society. And then, with the whole tipping culture being like, well, we're not going to pay you a living wage. We're not going to give you healthcare. We're not going to give you anything to have savings on. So good luck buying a house with tips. Like, so it's just a very cruel culture now. And that's where this fatigue is coming from brands telling you how to be or to be a better person. And it's like, we're not the problem. So that's where people get turned off.
I agree with you. And I think that, I mean, to just kind of hit that, to backtrack just slightly, I think that, you know how when you were a kid and you were taking a test in school and like maybe you didn't study as much as you should have. So you hit a question that you don't necessarily know how to answer. So you just guess and then you move on. It's like, I probably got that wrong. And then you just move on. I think that's how they treat the millennial generation. It's like, we didn't really do great with this one. Let's just kind of like, let's just sweep it like and move on. We've got Gen Z happening now. Let's focus on that. And we'll just deal with this instead. So I feel like that's kind of how a lot of people are approaching it. Because we, for a long time, we got hate from both sides. It was like boomers hated us and Gen Z hated us. And we did nothing. We were just literally here. Like, guys, we're just trying to we're just trying to get jobs. We're just trying to make our lives happen a little bit. And I feel like now, at least from my interactions with things and or like with the generations, I feel like they do understand that we have learned a lot. We've tried to do a lot with what we've been given. But we were not given the same opportunities that the generation before us or the generation after us have been given. And so it's just, we're the, kind of the forgotten generation. And you have to just, just like they try and sweep us under the rug and like forget that we exist. It's like we have to kind of just try and sweep the fact that all these things happened to us and we got literally nothing from any of it. No help from anything, just constant trauma. We just kind of have to try and forget that every single day and just continue on.
Well, that's too. And like, we're the last like eligible generation to be able to bridge that gap between boomers and the silent generation that still is surviving. We're the only ones that are able to bridge that to the generation below us. And the generation below us doesn't see the train coming that AI is bringing. Because every single one of these Gen Zs or whatever, they all are shoveled into colleges with still getting degrees they don't need or won't use, the same as we did. But, just because they're not entering in an economic collapse and a recession like we also got handed, they are getting degrees that are going to be obsolete jobs. And they have not grown up. Like, these kids were in high school during the pandemic. They weren't learning trades. They weren't doing internships. They were at home on computers. So, and AI is going to take these jobs. So I think that's one big thing too, that also we're not going to be in a position to help them or get them in the workforce because they have no concept of the workforce. And we barely
This is
do.
true.
So
this is also true.
Yeah. And all they know is overstimulation from constant digital brand advertisements. Their concept of the world is very different. And we saw all the problems. Like, we saw them all. We weren't given the tools to fix any of them because we weren't afforded them, but we saw it all going down. And so now they're inheriting something that they have no concept of, I really think, in my opinion, where it's like, they don't know how things work. They don't know how to fix them, and they just live behind screens. So that's going to be a really rough thing too, of like, they probably trust brands too much because they're not in the real world.
I can agree with that. I also disagree with it just a bit, only because I feel like since we were basically the trial run, I feel like, nothing that ever happens first is the thing that stays usually. You always have, like, Napster came before, like Apple Music and Spotify and stuff like that. And it's like, those are the ones that lasted because they got to see all the problems that Napster had, and then they got to fix them, and they were ahead of the issues. So in my perspective of things, I'm like, I think they're going to be okay because boomers have realized, because they messed up with us, they didn't utilize us to our full potential. They didn't give us the opportunities that would have made the world kind of continue and blossom a little bit faster. I think that they see the value in the generations now, and they want to utilize them a little bit more. And I do think that they have more opportunities to utilize their degrees and go get actual corporate positions higher up and like have room for promotion and things like that, because the companies realize now, oh, the internet is here to stay. Like, before, they were like, this is like a fad. Nobody's going to really be there that long. It's whatever. And so they didn't take us seriously, and they didn't take the fact that we were, really into being social on the internet and really into being creative on the internet and stuff like that. They didn't think that was real. But it's like, now they see that, oh my God, it's been here for like 20, 30 years now. I don't think it's going anywhere. We're only going to move farther, like you said, into AI and things like that. And it's just, they know that now. So I don't think they're going to have as hard of a time as we did with the kind of corporate hierarchy structure and breaking the glass ceiling sort of thing. But I do think that AI, there's a certain level of human interaction that people are still interested in having, because AI is not perfect. I do think that there's going to be some more time before it gets to the point where it would fully replace human interaction, because it can't, the whole hand thing. I don't know if you've seen with it drawing hands. It cannot draw hands very well, most of it. So it's like that when you have AI for, companionship or things like that, where they make it for just to be a companion to somebody or to recreate somebody who's passed away, stuff like that. I don't think that it's totally right. Like, some of the stuff just isn't right, and your brain automatically knows that. So I don't think they're going to be losing too many jobs to AI just yet. I think we're playing with stuff. Like, you can write with AI, you can maybe do some coding with AI. I use AI for coding a lot. Like, I very, very much enjoy ChatGPT. But sorry, my thing went out. But yeah, I do think that it's going to be some time before. It might not even be this generation. It might be whatever comes after. It might be Generation Alpha, like the end of Generation Alpha, I think, where AI really becomes an issue.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying of like the breaking into the corporate world is a different ballgame than what we got. And that is totally true. Like, when you put it that way, because like they did underestimate us, and they did kind of just be like, oh, like, we're not making a position for you. We're just kind of forgetting about you. But now it's like, oh, they do need us, and they don't know how to keep up with the pressures of social media. And also, like, there's a lot of articles that I've read about just the spending. Like, Gen Z is coming into their, like, at first they kind of ignored them and their trends and what they're interested in because they didn't have any spending power. But now they're coming into spending power because they're in their early 20s, mid 20s. So now they're big time consumers. And how are they consuming? So I think the reason the corporate world is turning to them is because they're like, well, you are the next money. So we can't shut the door to all that. So like, now you see, you can sell things on your TikTok, you can sell things on your YouTube. Like, everything is like click to buy, where it's like, because I have a background in home shopping network, and that was always kind of like the boomers version of that, 24-hour TV where you can just call and order things. That used to be wildly popular. And now they've even pivoted because they saw that that generation was going by the wayside. They weren't calling in like they're used to. They're like, that generation now has cell phones that they shop from. So the next thing that they're always trying to develop is like literally touch to buy. They want you to be able to just tap to buy on your screen. So because that's what Gen Z is now accustomed to. You see it, you get it, you move on with your day. And so, yeah, like, corporations are now finally seeing the value in that, but they're also very lost, where they need millennials like us to step in with a creative agency to be able to bridge all of that and be like, okay, you have a background with hands-on work and craftsmanship, or whatever, you built your whole company from the ground up, like very old school American style. You didn't do it with computers and technology to help you. So now you're trying to put translate those values into this new world. So that also gets really scary for these brands, because they realize like this generation, ours and below, are like, well, we need to know who you are. We need to know your values. We need to know your vision. We need to know what you stand for. So a lot of them are kind of stepping in their own mess, because like Gillette's a men's razor is what you think of when you hear them. But Gillette had a whole blowback of the fact that during the Me Too movement, they tried to make a "be the best man you can be" kind of slogan. And it was like, time to learn, men, we're going to be better. And everyone was like, shut up. Like, it didn't go well. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, they were trying really hard to be like, we care, we're here, we're gonna be like the good man's brand. And they're like, we don't want to hear this. And so I can only imagine what those meetings were like and how misguided they were, and that they hadn't invested in someone from this generation to be like, that's not what we want to hear right now. Like, you were just trying to fix this, and that's not how this is, because you see a lot of cheap efforts from brands too.
Oh, for sure. For sure. They put very little substance behind their cause. Like, they just want to be, a lot of them will just want to be trendy with their causes. I will say there's so this thing that I drink here, this Harmless Harvest, I love this. It's a coconut smoothie. It's just like coconut, and it's the meat and the water and just like smoothed up. But because I get them on subscription, they sent out an email talking about how they support LGBTQIA+, and it was kind of just a random thing. I guess maybe something had happened, and so they had sent it out. And I missed that email, honestly. I didn't see it. But I got the next email, which was them I'm apologizing loosely. I'm using quotation marks here because they weren't apologizing. They were like, we stand behind what we said when we were saying we were standing behind them for whatever the issue was at the time a couple months ago. And you know what? I was like, I am so proud that I like this brand, because I love the fact that they're standing behind what they said, regardless of if it was wrong or right, whatever it was. Because like I said, I don't exactly remember what the controversy was there, but they stood behind their statement, and the fact that they put that out saying that they were supporting the community and whatnot. And I thought, you don't get that a lot from brands these days. It's like, if they do anything that rubs anyone wrong, regardless of if it's wrong or right, there's an immediate apology, and it may or may not be actually sincere, but it's just to soothe things over so people forget. And I was like, this is nice. This is nice to see somebody just stand behind their statement. Again, I'm not saying it was wrong. I'm not saying it was right. It was just nice to see a brand that has convictions. Yeah. Yeah,
I really like that, because I think that, I guess one of the questions I was going to ask you is like, so a client comes to you and they're like, what should we do? Should we have a stand on something as we're like building their brand from the ground up? What would you say is the process of like how they can safeguard themselves and be able to stand beside themselves and not feel bullied? Because people want to quote unquote troll. They want to be bullies. There's people out there who want to know that they have the power to take you down from their keyboard. And that's just the reality. And it really ruins lives. And it really gets people into situations that are misconstrued and unfair. But then you can't, your business has lost credibility and you've lost thousands of followers. All that happens. So like, if a brand comes to you and they ask like, how do we set ourselves up to safeguard ourselves from this? Do you think that there's a roadmap that we can give clients about that?
For sure. Know your market. Absolutely 100% in and out. Know your demographic. Have that ideal client already made up so that you can always know what it is that they're about, what they like, how they're generally going to receive something. So if by chance you choose a cause, like you're just really into this specific cause, like your Tom's shoes, Tom's shoes, you buy a pair, they give a pair to a child in Africa. That's their cause. It's like, they need to know how their market is going to receive that, if that's what your whole thing is going to be about. Because like, that was their whole selling point, I think, for the first several years that they were in business. It's still a huge selling point for them, but I think people just, it's like, if you buy Tom's shoes, you kind of just, you just want affordable, kind of minimalistic, comfort, basic shoes. But that was their big thing, was that they gave a pair of shoes to kids in Africa. And I think it's because they knew their market inside and out. They were like, we're targeting this type of person. We want this type of person who, if you buy a pair of shoes, number one, you have probably double the income that we're charging for this shoe. So we already know that it's affordable for you, and you probably want to donate, but you may not want to actually like physically donate your money. So we're just going to charge enough to where it's basically double the price of the shoe. So we can make 2 pairs of shoes to give to somebody without hurting our bottom line. So as long as you know who it is that you're selling to and what they want, which they might be charitable people, so you can make that price point higher and just integrate that in. Again, bringing back that whole thing about tipping culture and whatever, just put it into your price to begin with so that people don't feel bad about giving it up front. you can support causes that way because you know who you're selling to. So I think that is my biggest tip to anybody. Just understand your demographic, understand your market. Don't just pick something and be like, I'm going to sell to everybody. Everybody's going to want to buy this. Like, it's the type of product that will sell itself. Nothing sells itself. People sell it. People tell people what to buy because people, 90% of them like direction. They want to be led and they want you to tell them what's good for them. So you figure out who the type of person is that would want to be told to buy your thing. And then you give them that thing for the price point that is available to them. That would be my tip.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So yeah, I love what you said about number one, know your customer. Like, if you know your demographic, you know their values, you know what they want, you know how they interact with the world, and that you're trying to put yourself in their world. That is the most important thing you can do. And that's the one thing to know. How much are these people willing to spend? What is the life of your daily customer? And that's going to guarantee the best way that you can get sales, which is your ultimate goal, is to be a successful company. But you have to know who's supporting you, and you don't want to turn your back on who is supporting you. So that's always interesting to stay in tune with. I think another roadmap to success thing that we give our clients is when they come to us, of like letting them know that everyone expects a lot from you. You are behind this business, but we're here to help you with that. And we're here to give you the tools and the resources if you need, depending on how big you are and your demands. And that is something that helps people who feel the pressure of not being able to give the time one-on-one to their customers, who are on social media and are wanting to interact with them and do want to feel connected to them. Because I mean, most of the positive experiences we've had with brands that we know and love and return to is because they do make you feel seen in some little way. And so you want to instill in our clients like how they can do that to make their customers feel good. And I think that they get overwhelmed with not being able to individually respond to people, whether it's positive or negative. So I think one thing that we can do is either, if they can't afford to bring in a social media consultancy person or a PR that we would help them with, one thing that they can always safeguard themselves that I don't think people tell them enough is like, you're allowed to create boundaries. You are a business. You are a person at the end of the day who's running this business. No one has the right to yell at you at 3 a.m. on Twitter or Facebook, and you feel like I'm losing sleep over this and I can't run my business because everyone hates me. You're allowed to make boundaries on your own website or your social or whatever way that you communicate with your customers best, where you can put the hours that you're available and the times that you're going to be responding and the most appropriate way for people to get in touch with you. You can communicate all of that. And that's you doing your due diligence, and you're communicating with your customers to be like, we want to talk to you. Here, we do run our own business. Or if you're a mom and pop or you're a big corporation, like, you could delegate where it needs to go. And if people are just yelling into thin air, let them do it. It's not your responsibility to go to them like that. And some people feel that pressure because we just hear so much negativity in the press about just trashing this brand or trashing this cause or these people every single day. And you don't have to be involved in it. So I think that if people heard a little bit more of that, it would take away this like toxicity that is just in the air that we breathe now. We're all at each other's throats, it feels, and we feel like there is no solution. And it also kind of feels like maybe the people don't want there to be a solution. And that's hard to kind of feel too, of like, are we just set up to keep in inner fighting where we're not getting things accomplished? And we want to communicate that to our clients, that like, you're allowed to make your own boundaries and you're allowed to be the best you can be and let the rest lie. And I don't know, I think that is also number 2 on our roadmap to success there, when it comes to like, how do you set yourself up to communicate your values and be cause driven in your own lane.
Exactly. I think that that's an amazing point. And to kind of just extend it slightly, you do always have the option to have your boundary be silence. Like, you don't always have to be on a cause. Not every cause needs to be something that you speak about, and you pick and choose which ones are worthy of your time, which ones are very valid, because you're going to have trolls no matter what you say, no matter which side you take, no matter what level you're on, somebody's going to troll you. It's not going to align with somebody. You're going to alienate someone. So you could choose to be silent. That also alienates people, but it usually does slightly less depending on what the cause is. So just know that that's always an option too. And again, you just need to realize how many people you may or may not be offending by taking sides. Is it worth it at the end of the day to speak out about something if it's going to alienate, 50% or more of your demographic? You want to make sure that you're always aware of how many people it's going to affect. If it's only affecting 10%, a very small percentage of your demographic, they're not very political, they're not very cause driven, they're not very environmental, whatever, maybe it pays for you to just say nothing. And you just need to know your metrics, and again, need to know that audience to decide where it is that you fall and whether or not you need to take an actual stance. So I think that's really important. And in terms of, you also want to think about what type of business you are, because you have people who are full-blown business brands, you have a product, you have a service, you have something tangible that you're selling that people get something from. Then you have people who are just influencers. You're not really selling, like, you are the product. It's not necessarily like a thing you're selling, it's yourself. So people tend to connect that cause with you specifically. It's like, as a brand, they connect it with the brand, but it's not necessarily a specific person. Like, you don't connect everything that Amazon does with Jeff Bezos. It's not always like that sort of thing. Not everything that Tesla does is Elon Musk. A lot of the times it is, because they're super huge figures, but most of the time it's not like that. So you want to think about, if you're just a singular person just trying to be, on the internet or on social media or something like that, whether or not people are going to communicate taking a stance directly with you specifically, because it's going to come out of your mouth and you're basically going to become a poster child for this thing. So just always know how it's going to be perceived, whether or not it's worth it for you. Is the cause something that you will go to the grave defending? Because as soon as you open your mouth about it, people are going to have an opinion, and you just want to be totally aware of the fact that somebody is not going to have the same opinion as you. So somebody's going to come for you. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, that's amazing. I couldn't agree more. Like, you have to teach a little bit of tough skin to our clients as well, where, like, you cannot take it all personal. You're not going to make everybody happy. But what you can do is protect yourself and your loyal customers and keep communicating that you appreciate them. That's, like, stick to what's important and don't get too bogged down. And yeah, like, you said it so good, as far as like keeping their head in their lane. And, like, you want to be able to look back and know that your track record, like, is it important, like, making this stance today, how is that going to affect your overall track record, though, of how people view your brand? Is it worth it? Like, is this something that's just going to come and go, and you felt like today's pressures didn't really amount to anything? So, like, are you making a stance that's worth it too, versus just sticking to your bread and butter and keeping those around you happy and keeping a positive brand? So, yeah.
Agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love us. I'm going to end it there.
No fatigue here. Yeah, no fatigue here.
No fatigue here. Fatigueless.
Yeah, no cause fatigue. Yeah.
No.